Okay, so since I've already reviewed the Sony Xperia XA2, I'm gonna cut the review for the XA2 Ultra, which is obviously besides the size very similar, just a little bit shorter. But there are actually two main advantages which the Ultra has. First of all, it's in a few categories a little bit better, which just makes it a generally better, even though bigger phone. But it also has a lot less competition because the market with 6 inches, with 16:9, it's just very sparse. And no, 2x1 displays with 6 inches are not the same, because if you compare these two, this is not the same. You get a lot more screen real estate on the XA2 Ultra compared to the 6 inches with 2x1. But as you can see here, compared to the XA2, very similar, but of course it's obviously bigger with 0.8 inches. What I would have wished for the top bezel to be just about as big as the one on the bottom, because on the XA2 they got that right in my opinion, but that's just a minor thing. Now otherwise still very nice solid frame, nothing really creaks, but the back still, like on the XA2, has a little bit of a very subtle curve, and that one, at least on my version, can be pushed inwards. There is a little bit flex. From a fellow YouTuber I heard that his ones doesn't have that, so I just can't say what I do. Both of mine have this little bit of a gap with the flex. It's nothing of a deal breaker because in normal use you won't notice, but I wanted to mention it. Of course, but you can also see the buttons are placed a little bit higher. Same goes for the fingerprint reader, which makes at least the fingerprint reader a little bit harder for me to reach, but it's fine. And it's still not the very best, because as you can see, the whole unlocking mechanism still just needs a little bit long. The fingerprint reader on its own is fast. Still not the fastest one in general, but it's fine. Then of course we have the camera protruding just a little bit, but I don't think this should bother anyone, even though I heard some other things in the comments on the XA2 review. Of course the flash. Then we have the headphone jack, microphone, SD card and SIM card, not really a tray, but you can just take this out, but the phone will reboot. Someone said if you are in the settings menu, this won't happen, or in some special point, but yeah, still a little bit of an inconvenience. The speaker, USB Type-C, microphone, LEDs. Now we have two cameras, which I'm not gonna go too much into. The flash actually, even that, and of course the rest of the sensors. Of course the side bezels are still very nice and small on the XA2. They actually, for me, seem almost a little bit bigger than on the XA1 Ultra, but that's not something I'm gonna complain. I know bezels on the top and bottom will bother a few people. I know Sony users not. I personally don't mind as much. The fact that they are square, though, makes the phone actually harder to hold than some that have a curve, but yeah, that's just about that. Now the display, I have to say, is better, and I still couldn't give it half a star more because it's super bright, 700 measured lux, which is very bright. We still have the modes, and this display is actually completely differently calibrated compared to the XA2, which you will maybe see once we switch into the settings. As you can see, noticeably warmer. Of course, the color profile is not the same, but we could actually get that as well. So super vivid mode, there is a difference, especially the white point, which you could change. But generally, this display was better, but I just couldn't give it a 5-star rating after all, even though it's a very nice display. Very bright, viewing angles are actually mostly stable as well. You will see that in just a second. It doesn't never look like that on the video, but nice colors, good sharpness. 6 inches with full HD is still okay. So overall, a fully pleasing display, absolutely. Now what about the speaker? That one is still bottom firing as on the XA2, but it is noticeably louder. The quality isn't really much better, but that is actually enough for me, just because I could hear things so much easier in louder environments that I will give it actually half-star extra. Now the headphone jack, according to some stats I've seen, should be better. I don't really notice any sort of difference, and it was actually marginally, but not that it makes a difference quite on my version, but that could be just a thing. And I also noticed one thing. You have to kinda have plugs that are longer. For example, the USB port didn't work with my USB cables. You have to use ones, for example, the one that you get by default from Sony, and that one charges. My normal chargers just didn't always connect. And the same also goes for the headphone jack. I had the same with one pair of headphones where it just didn't go far enough. Now, we've covered the sound, so performance is the next thing. And that one is pretty much identical though to the XA2. I didn't really see any differences. Multitasking is still a little bit weird with some things, with, for example, when you switch between apps, sometimes going a little bit weird, but that's more of an Oreo thing. But other than that, it's mostly very smooth. on par with most Snapdragon 625 phones or so. There is not a huge difference. So it's not crazy fast and snappy, but it's very consistent, very smooth. So the overall experience, especially when we go into the browser, everything works out fine. And like I said, I don't really want to spend too much time on it because it's a very solid phone. I really like that it's still on par with the really good mid-ranges. Now, full charge doesn't actually really matter. With the battery saving technology, or the kind of that wants to prevent the battery going dead or a little bit earlier, it would need like almost 3 hours, which sounds very long, but the longer you will use it, the more it will adjust to that, and then the length actually doesn't change. If you would charge it with a quick charger and disable that feature, you should be around like 1 hour and 40 or something like that. Then the battery life. That one, for some reason I can explain to myself, is so much better, significantly better than on the XA2, even though the battery is just a little bit bigger. Because what I got here is 6.5 hours to 7 hours. So let's say roughly 6 hours at the worst, 7 hours at the best on mobile data, roughly 6.5 on average, which is like 1 to 1.5 hours better than the XA2, which almost can't be the thing, because yes, the battery is a little bit bigger, but also the screen noticeably more. Okay, yes, standby range for some reason was noticeably better on the XA2 Ultra. So maybe slightly different software versions, which means that the XA2 Ultra actually has some maybe unused potential left and could be at least 1 hour better. I don't know. I can just tell you what I've seen here. The battery life is absolutely great. On Wi-Fi, actually 9 to 10 hours possible. That's great. So, software. I'm gonna cut this quite short because it is Sony's UI. I think it looks dated, but now you can actually change the icons for all those who bother about that. These are not the ones, but you can use third-party icons. So just in case you are bothered about it, go to default and they look different, but that's it. Of course, we have an app drawer with a swipe. It should also work. Okay, why not? Okay, you have still the button. I actually changed the button to the top because I thought the swipe would have worked, but yeah, doesn't matter. Apps are there, side scrolling. Then navigation, quick settings. Looks like Android. It's running Android O. You get a quite amount of features, but not really many. You get a very, very, very solid stock Android experience with a theming engine, so that doesn't really do too much. But the good thing about Sony, long update support. You get your updates quite quickly, also security updates and so on. So I like the software, even though it's dated, it does the job really good. Now, camera is actually one thing that I'm not even gonna cover, even though this has a difference. We have two cameras on the front, and it seems to actually be stabilized and have autofocus. But the results don't really turn out that much better. I will give it half a star more just because of the autofocus, the stabilization, two proper cameras for wide and so on. They are better, but I just don't need to show them. It is better, but still there are noticeably better ones out there. Video as well. Now for the main camera, it's virtually the same, so I don't really see any differences, so it's about on that part. But I still have to say, I'm not the biggest fan of the camera experience because the software is quite dated. It's a little bit clumsy to get some things done. You need auto mode to work a little better just to get better results, but it doesn't do that. So manual mode is the thing. What I've heard though, which I just can't include in the test, is someone told me you need to install the Google camera or maybe a third-party camera, and then your results will turn out so much better. This absolutely can be true, and I actually believe it because it's the software that I think makes this one feel a little bit left behind. But I can't just include that in the review, which already brings me to my conclusion. You can see the rating, a few things have improved, so let me just go into these a little bit. The display is a little bit better, not enough to give it a half a star more or something like that, but it is a beautiful screen. The speaker is louder, doesn't really sound much better, but it gets a better rating just for that. The battery life is noticeably better, the front-facing camera is better, and that's pretty much it. Of course, it costs a little bit more, and this is where the crux starts to begin. But before that, I'm actually going to tell you one more thing. I had a few Wi-Fi issues. I had them already on the XA2, but not enough to be actually mentioned. But here it got a little more obvious, so it should have been a thing of both. Wi-Fi for some reason just disconnected quite often. Then I had to manually reconnect and then it was fine. A little bit of an odd issue. But let's get back to the recommendation part. I can way easier recommend this than the XA2 because let's just check the competition. This is 6 inches at around 450 euros at the moment. I think the price will quite soon drop to around 400. And then I have to just call out a few ones that have though their caveats as well. Xiaomi Mi Max 2. I actually personally think it's the better phone, and it's noticeably cheaper, around 250 or something like that, but it has to be imported. It doesn't have band 20, so it's not directly comparable. Then there is something like a Nubia Z11 Max, also quite similar, but that one has dated software, usually has to be imported as well, but at least here there is a band 20 version, so also not really comparable, which just makes this one very easy to recommend. The only ones that I saw it around this size would have been something like a Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus that has a huge screen. But at the last moment I actually remembered one, and that one I have to just call out. The Huawei Mate 9. It's now at around 450 euros as well. I don't know where you are, how much it costs, but just about as big in terms of screen with 5.9 inches, but noticeably smaller device, feels noticeably more premium. The screen is better, the sound is better, the performance is better. Battery life was about the same though, but very, very superb as well. Camera was better. Software though, maybe not for everyone. So for everyone who likes stock Android, who likes a big phone where he thinks the price is fine once it's maybe a little bit down as well, this is way easier to recommend. Already the XA2 was a solid phone with the camera being not that great, which is still the thing here. This one is just a better phone with still not the best camera, unless you maybe think about using a third-party app, and that's where I'm gonna leave it. It is better, it's way easier to recommend than the XA2. That's kind of the crux of the whole thing. And that's where I'm gonna cut this video off. I hope you liked it. Give it a thumbs up and don't think I'm a hater, because I'm not, but do what you want. And I would say wish you a nice day. Until next time. Bye.